You can't have that. Rude. So I have ended up with an absolute abundance of zucchini. And some of the zucchini is a little past its sell-by date, which is fine because my plan is to make zucchini bread. But because this would be like a billion loaves of zucchini bread, I'm gonna shred it all and freeze it in appropriate sized portions so I can use them one at a time. Let's check it out. So I'll take off the nibs, cut them into relatively small pieces, and into the food processor they go. So I'll do this just a batch at a time until I have it all shredded in the food processor. And then my main goal here is to save all of the liquids because that's what makes the zucchini bread so yummy and moist. So I don't want to strain or blot it at all. And I want kind of an in-between, not completely pasty, whoa, but also not like big chunks. So then I use 180 grams of zucchini per serving order, thing of zucchini bread. So I'm going to measure out 180 grams, set it to the side because I'm actually going to bake today, and then the rest I'll be portioning and freezing.
Mommy?
Yeah, baby.
Mommy?
Yeah, baby.
Huh? Mommy?
Yeah, baby.
Huh? No, no.
No, no.
Mommy? 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 No. Hmm?
75. 181. And like, I'm being overly exact. It doesn't really. 175 or 181 or 183, whatever. All of those would have been fine. But I've got my 180 grams of zucchini, and I'm gonna set it, and then I'm gonna start portioning the rest of it. So my plan for portioning the bits that I'm freezing is to double. So 180 times 2 is 360. Yes, love. Put it in a freezer zipper bag. Mark it in half, kind of squidge to both sides, and freeze it that way. That way I use half the number of bags and still get the right amount in each frozen portion. And then when I'm ready to bake again, just pop one out, throw it in my recipe, and we're good to go. I decided it would be easier to do this into a bowl and then move from the bowl to the bag, so that's what we're doing. So I'm just gonna get my bowl to 360, put it in a bag, start over. And just repeat this process until all of my zucchini is bread ready. Squidge out all the air, and then break it roughly in half. Like I said before, the 180 is just kind of a shooting point. It doesn't really matter, one way or the other, 10 grams. But one thing I am going to do is once I fold it in half, once I push it in half, I'm going to fold it into half, and that way when it freezes, it'll make a clear break. so that it's easy to pop one out without disturbing the other, keeping them fresh for longer. Trumpet. So another thing I'll do is use some of these kind of ugly apples that we have to make the applesauce that goes in the bread. I'll probably just make enough for what I'm baking in the next day or two, but this is another thing that you can absolutely make big batches of in advance and freeze. Super simple. All you do is cut them up, microwave them a few minutes to cook the skins, and then boom, in the food processor. And it doesn't even matter they have little bits of zucchini on them, because it's all going to get mixed together anyway. Alright, so now that I have my applesauce and my zucchini shredded, I'm ready to start the baking process. These are all of my ingredients. I also got these really cute disposable baking dishes in Christmas patterns, which I love because that'll make the gift just a little more, I don't know, gifty. But I also need to make sure that I can tell the difference between my gluten and dairy-free zucchini bread, which is what I'm going to make right now, versus my standard, because we have a couple of family members who need those things, which is not a problem. I love baking to accommodate everybody's different needs. It's actually one of my passions, but I need to be able to tell them apart because it is still quite a few days before Christmas and I could get them confused. So my plan is to use the blue to make the gluten and dairy-free version and the other three colors for the standard versions, just because for whatever reason blue has kind of become that gluten-free color, and so that'll be a little bit easier for me to remember. So let's get started. So from here I'll just be mixing and combining all of my ingredients. Because this is a quick bread, I am gonna get a little lazy with the mixing and do all of my liquids and sugars first, and then come back and add in the flour and solids. If you're looking for something that's gonna rise with yeast, that's not a good option, but with a quick bread, it doesn't matter so much, so we get a little bit away with it. So let's get started. So once I've got all of my wets mixed in, I'm gonna go for the dries. I'll start with the spices and baking soda, baking powder, and salt. Once all of that's fully incorporated, I'll mix in the flour, or gluten-free flour in this case. So because I'm skipping the step of sifting and all that stuff, I wanna make sure that all of the other dries get fully integrated, and then the flour is the last. But that's looking Actually, it looks pretty gross, I'm not gonna lie. It looks a bit like dog throw up, but I promise it'll taste good once it's baked into a bread. Another thing I'm gonna do is, because I know I'm gonna make more batches of this, I'm gonna go ahead and pre-measure the stuff that I'm getting out of these jars for a second and third set. That way it's just a little bit easier to go ahead and dump it all in at once, rather than having to go back and measure multiple times. So if you see me making up little bowls of stuff, that's why. Just, you know, making my future life a little bit easier. That's a great lazy genius technique that I learned. You know, ask yourself, what can you do now? What small work can you do now to make the future a little bit easier? And because I know I'm going to be baking the same recipe multiple times, that's absolutely one of them. So lucky for me, I can go ahead and take a little bit of that future burden off myself for really no extra work now. I mean, how much more work is it to pop a little bit of the same thing? I also use my ½ teaspoon measuring spoon for everything. All of the quantities in this recipe do good multiples of ½ teaspoon. So there's no real, I can just do 2 or even half if it's something ¼ teaspoon. That saves me from dirtying a lot of stuff. So the flavor for this is going to be oatmeal craisin, which I'm really excited about. We did if you saw my video, I'll tag, we did the taste tester, but I'm going to be incorporating some of that, the chai spices as well, just for a little bit of extra me oomph. So I'm going to be using 2 types of cinnamon, ginger, fresh nutmeg, and then this pre-made chai masala blend, which is ginger, cinnamon, cardamom, black pepper, nutmeg, and clove. So this should give it a nice, subtle, well-balanced taste. I'm really excited about. And then a ½ teaspoon of each of the others. That's honestly more cinnamon and spice in general than this recipe calls for. That's okay. We like a full-bodied flavor in this house. But one of the beauties of baking is that you make it your own. So if you don't like quite as strong of flavors, you should feel absolutely no need to use as much spices as I do. Back it off, do what tastes best for you and your family. I'm gonna do like a ¼ teaspoon of this ginger, because ginger is one of those flavors, it can be pretty strong. So I've done all of my dries other than the flour and my spice mix. I'm gonna set these guys to the side now because I don't need them until I make another batch. I am going to do this mix, get it fully integrated, and then as the last step I will do the flour and then the mix-ins. All right, so this is fully integrated. It smells delicious, by the way. Like, it's hard to describe those warming spices together with the apple that was already warm because we did we put it in the microwave to soften it up a little bit. It's just, I'm super excited. You have no idea. So when I'm cooking, especially gluten-free items, I always try to do those first before I make the items with gluten, just from a safety perspective. The folks in my family that are gluten-free are not celiac, which is nice, so I don't have to completely scrub down my kitchen before I can cook for them. They're just gluten intolerant, I guess. So that really makes a big difference. I'm going to be using 1 1/4 cups of this gluten-free flour mix. I'm going to use my 1/4 cup scoop and do 7 scoops in. That allows me just to make sure it gets slowly integrated, which will prevent clumping. So I'll just make sure that I count. Don't lose count, super important. And I'll stop it every once in a while and clear off the sides and stuff. But you can go straight in while it's still running. That's great. I love using this clear glass bowl. That way you can see if you've got any unmixed in spots on the sides. Alright, looks pretty good. I don't see any clumps. So we will add in our raisins and oatmeal. So you want to shoot for about 1 cup total. 200 grams, that's not going to line up exactly, but close enough, of mixies. For this, because I want to be extra sure about the gluten-free, I went ahead and bought some packaged, advertised as gluten-free oatmeal packs. There's 1/2 cup in each, just to be 100% sure. They also have flax and chia in them, so super extra for them. So I'm going to use this and get both of these, and that's going to be about 100 grams. And then I'm actually going to use the same container to measure my raisins. And that looks pretty good. With your mixies here at the end, it doesn't super matter whether or not they're exact. You're not looking for precision here. And then mix it all in one last time. I'm gonna try to get these relatively even. You know, down to the micron is not super important, as with most things in a quick bread recipe. As long as you get it pretty close, you're good. The biggest thing about getting them equal contents is that they will bake at the same speed. If you have one that's much heavier, it'll bake more slowly. But like, I could be using my scale here and I'm not. So now I have my 3 gluten-free, dairy-free, yada 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 zucchini breads. More or less even. I'm gonna spread them out so that we get good airflow in between each, and pop them in the oven. And because I've already got my setup going, I'm going to go ahead and just make my next batch. So, as a little cheater, I am going to weigh the 1/2 cup of oil that I'm going to put into this one so that I can just add it by weight for my next couple. And this is just normal vegetable oil. Looks like it weighs about 100 grams. That's super convenient. I love it when things come out even like that. and fried rice. One thing you do want to be careful of with this system, way, whatever, is to pour kind of slow, because if you overshoot, it's hard to take it back out. I went over just a teeny bit. That is okay. Not a big deal. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and cream these together. So I've got my oil and my sugary dries. We use that term very liberally or loosely in this recipe because it involves things like zucchini and applesauce. Basically everything except the spices, the flour, and the eggs. So we'll get all this mixed in. Alrighty, so much faster on this one because of all the pre-work we did, which is great. So this is batch 2. This is not gluten-free. It's very important that we remember that. This bag exploded while I was filling it up. So I'm gonna try and get it out without making too much of a mess. Okay, friends, so fun story time. I could not for the life of me remember whether or not I put the sugar into these third and fourth liquid batches that I made. So I just spent the last 20 minutes going over the video of all of this to see. Good news, figured it out, didn't, so now we know. I guess that's one of the benefits of making these videos for you, is I get to catch my own mistakes. So let's do that now. And like I said, be careful with the weight when you can pour way too much. Luckily, I'm only an idiot when it really counts. And the only thing in this bowl is the sugar, so I can dump some of it back in without worrying too much. Perfectly. Yep. Who knew I was that lucky?
Oh, yum. Okay.
That's my
Gifts this year in Michigan. Everybody has.
These came out of the oven, so let's check them. These are our gluten-free ones. And toothpick looks pretty good with these zucchini bread or any real kind of fruit bread. You don't really want it to come out completely clean. That would really mean that they're overbaked. But just a little bit of that moistness is perfect. So I'm just going to slowly add the flour as we have been doing this whole time. I pre-measured it just to save myself a little bit of time, but I'm still going to add it in kind of slowly, not just dump it in all at once. I always do that. One bigger bunch and then really slowly at the end. I think is probably the best way. Now that I know that there's sugar in this in my next batch, just second, finishing up the third, and then quickly do the fourth, and we will be all finished with today's baking. So now I have 9 glutinous loaves. They are all exactly the same. So let's see about getting them on a tray, or 2, probably, yeah, 2. And getting them baked. Yeah, all right, all right, all right. Tasty, tasty?
Mm-hmm. There. I think he's got a big, thick enough piece.